The slippery slopes, indeed. Now, you know what else is a slippery slope?
Not what I just said. That didn't make it on the
It
recording.
did not. It did
That's a
not.
good thing.
It's a good thing. But you know what else is a slippery slope, though? Working for the police.
Working for the police.
Working for the police.
So many
One.
questions about this particular mode of working for the police.
Yeah. But you know what? It makes for entertaining.
It did.
It does make for some entertaining.
Did you read up on the true story?
Little bit.
I also did a little bit, and by that I
Very
mean,
little.
and by read up I mean I watched one YouTube video.
Oh, I just looked up one question, and that was my research. By the way, I'm hydrating.
Very good.
So
Liquid death.
Gotta stay hydrated with my liquid death.
Absolutely, hydrate or dihydrate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're talking about The Hitman, which is the new Netflix movie that's making the rounds.
Which got like not just making the rounds and like got a surprising big amount of buzz.
It got big buzz, but I also feel like the movie just came out a week ago,
Yep.
and this movie's already like in second place on the charts for Netflix, which
Yeah.
I'm like, that's kind of sad. Like I was kind of hoping this movie would sustain a little bit longer on the top.
What's first?
What is first? It was something that I was like, I can see that being first. I think it was a TV show.
Mm,
I'm pulling it right now. Oh, Sweet Tooth
I see.
I'm honestly surprised that show is still not necessarily going, but like going as strong.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah. So The Hitman is the number one movie though on Netflix right now. Followed by Under Paris, which is a movie about sharks in Paris.
It's a beautiful thing.
So kind of nuts.
Anyway, that's what everybody wanted.
That's what everybody wanted.
Mm-hmm.
The French getting their comeuppance.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So tell us what is The Hitman? What is your what made you want to watch this movie?
Well, what made me want to watch was the buzz. I had heard it was very good.
Mm-hmm.
Glenn Powell
Glenn Powell.
is the star, and I think Dan Murrell put it as he had the it was like his 15-year mediocre or not meteoric rise to stardom. Like he's been in the industry for like a while, but like these past like pretty much since like Top Gun, he's sort of shazoomed to a great place.
He's been in a lot of things.
Yeah, so I had really no idea what it was about. Like, I am almost like because I feel like there's movies with similar titles. Like there's Hitman's Bodyguard.
Yeah,
There's got to be a movie called The Hitman,
probably.
right? So like if it was just the title, I may have just ignored it. But it was really the buzz and Glenn Powell. I walked into this movie knowing very very
Little.
Yep.
My extent of this movie's my knowledge of this movie was that it was based on a guy who worked for the police.
Yeah.
He pretended to be like a hitman for hire, and then they would use that to incriminate these people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So as far as this movie goes, that is the synopsis, right? He's a professor. He moonlights as a hitman. He works for the police department in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And then he kind of gets entangled with a hottie with a body.
Yep.
Right? Bing, bang, boom.
Yeah.
Simple premise.
To me, a very surprising ending. We'll get there when we get there, but but it is a simple premise.
Simple premise. This is directed by Richard Linklater, who is, I think, the movie that I know him the most from is he made what's that movie? Boyhood.
Oh wow!
Which is that movie that took
I never saw
12 years to make or some shit like that.
Yeah.
I never watched it. I had zero interest. We had this discussion kind of recently about slice of life.
Right.
Where I will watch a slice of life anime, but I will not watch a slice of life movie or TV show, American TV show.
Where you play a slice of life video game that has kind of a stupid premise.
Maybe, potentially.
Yeah.
Right? So he has a lot. The way I've heard this guy describe is he makes movies about the suburbs. And I'm
That's kind of
like,
what's going on.
I'm like,
It's
yeah.
kind of what's going on.
Yeah, he has Boyhood, a movie called Bernie that I think it's pretty much like that.
Does this movie
Daisy.
take place in the suburbs or does it take
I mean,
place
this movie is.
in New Orleans proper?
I think he goes into the city, but I think he lives in like the suburbs.
Because it certainly doesn't really. It feels like it takes place more in the suburbs than it does in.
Yeah, because he goes out and he meets with people.
Yeah,
Right, the diner that he goes to a couple times, or a couple of the diners that we see, feel very like
suburbs.
suburby, right?
Right.
So like,
And I guess if these are police, they're doing sting operations on hitmen. They can't just be city police.
yeah,
That has to be a state. It has to be a state job.
yeah, for sure, right? We have a pretty small cast, all things considered,
Yeah.
like central cast, right? We have a broad cast in the sense of like we have a lot of like people who are here for like a scene,
Right.
right? But like it's really Glenn Powell, Adria, Arjona, who plays our hottie.
Yep.
She was in Morbius.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she plays Dr. Martine. Some guy named Austin Amelia who plays Jasper. We have the lady from 30 Rock who's playing Claudette.
Claudette, right?
And then Phil, he's like our other
Another mainish character.
mainish guy by Sanjay Rao. And I think like our main cast here like is
Does a
very
solid job.
strong. They are like some of their interactions are genuinely really fucking funny.
I think the Jasper character is funny.
Yeah.
I think he plays the role he's asked to play very well.
Very like sleazy. Like
Yeah.
you watch him and you're like, this guy is
Yeah.
not on the up and up.
What? Let's focus on our focal piece real quick.
Sure.
What is it about Glenn Powell?
Go on.
I mean, I don't think he's at the point yet where you can just like put his name next to a movie and you're like, oh, I'll see that shit. I think he could. I think he could
He
get there.
could.
Yeah.
I think, and this might be me jerking Tom Cruise off a little too much.
Right.
I think if Glenn Powell keeps working with Tom Cruise, he could be a Tom Cruise level star.
Has he done anything else besides Top Gun with him?
No, but I think he did something where he was like learning because like they both did Top Gun Maverick.
Right.
Um, Glenn Powell like loved the idea of like the piloting of the jets so much, he went on to like make a whole documentary with Spielberg maybe
Yeah, I think so.
about like the Blue Angels
Yeah.
and like writing with them. So like if he gets to that level of like passion and like doing his own like stunts potentially, like he's charismatic enough.
He's charismatic enough. He's got that kind of stupid grin,
That shit eating
that
grin that makes you
shit-eating
want to
grin,
punch him, but you're like, God
but it's also
damn.
kind of hot.
Yeah.
In this movie specifically, he gets a chance to showcase his range in a very easy way.
Which is a great like couple of scenes.
I don't know how I've been thinking about like the right way to phrase this ever since watching this movie, but I'm like, Glenn Powell is white men's blank.
He's
Right.
white men's
Right.
blank.
If white men have quote unquote lost their social capital in this in this newly enlightened age, then I think this is where we have
This is where you put your stamp.
not our stamp, but like it's if people think that it's lost for the white man, it is not. We've got Glenn Powell. We're
Yeah,
okay.
for sure.
We're okay.
For sure. Your
Yeah.
guys are fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he has the makings of like a good like leading man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we discussed this definitely when we talked about Anyone But You. But like I mean, it's hard to argue with him as like a performer because he's really good,
Mm-hmm.
as a looker because he's very good looking,
Yep.
and then also like now like we see that he's got like he helped write this screenplay. Like this movie has a writing credit for him.
Yeah.
So like that shows that he's
Got some.
got some talent.
He's more than just his looks. Although the hot
Absolutely.
privilege is certainly helping.
certainly helps.
Yep.
And I think that's honestly the biggest like criticism I have of this movie.
It relies too much on hot privilege.
Not just that, like it relies too much on people assuming that he's not hot. especially at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
When they're moving, like, there's a fucking scene in this movie where like some of his college kids
And
are
I'm
like,
like,
"When did our
"Professor-"
professor get hot?"
and I was like,
And I was
excuse me,
like,
did
"Fucking look at him."
I was like, did I miss something? I mean, I think this movie. There are problems that I have with this movie. I enjoyed myself. Don't get me wrong, and I recommend this movie actually. But I do think there's enough problems in this movie. I think this movie doesn't do a good enough job of like showing you his growth as a character. I think it like tells it to you in many ways. I think that's one of them where they're like, "Oh, T's hot now. He's got
Yeah,
all this confidence." I'm
this
like,
movie is basically like the Ugly Betty thing, where they just take his glasses off and they give him sunglasses, and then suddenly he's hot.
"What did we? Oh no, it's Ready Player One with the girl."
With the
And
with
she's
the with
like,
the
"I'm
birthmark,
so ugly."
and it's
Yeah.
literally the same character just with a birthmark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fucking nuts. I don't know. I think this movie like where it succeeds is like the actors have very good chemistry with each
Hmm.
other. Like even just conversations between like Jasper, Claudette, and Phil, where like you don't even have your main characters.
Yep.
Like they're just bouncing off of each other, and like it's very good. It's very well written. I think it lends you that like ability to like just watch a scene and not be like, all right, let's go on to like
Yeah.
the main plot here.
And a lot of this movie is like montage of Sting.
Yeah. Which I will say, like, it sounds bad to say it like this, but
But it
like
works.
it works, and like those were some of the scenes that like I think I liked the most.
I think that's what makes this movie the most memorable is those scenes.
Yeah.
Um, and they last for longer than you think they will.
What do you mean?
Like usually a type of movie like this, like those scenes will strictly be in like early part of the rising action, and
Yeah.
then the character will reach like the ordeal, and then they go away. But like
We
no
get like three solid montages,
chunks,
I think,
yeah,
where like he's doing his thing,
and you're like, all
and they're
right,
peppered throughout the movie.
and they're not necessarily like that really consequential to the plot.
Absolutely not.
Like they give him his opportunity to like play his role, and that like is what builds his confidence or whatever. But like, yeah,
I think in this movie because so let's get into it. Like I would say because it's on Netflix, I'm not really worried about spoilers because everybody has fucking Netflix
yep,
now. So I'd say go see it,
yeah, I
or
agree.
well, pop it on.
I agree.
Uh, I think this movie could have like it's not bad enough. Like I'd be like, oh, don't let kids watch it.
Oh,
It's got some sexy stuff,
it does got some sexy stuff.
but
I mean, I still wouldn't say let kids watch
I wouldn't
it.
say this is like a
But
solid like a 15-year-old could watch this movie
yeah,
and not be it's not too problematic. But anyway, um, the reason why I feel like those montages are used the way they are is because they make a point that like he's almost like a natural at this.
mm-hmm.
So like it's not even like they're showing us him honing his craft. It's just them
This
showing
is
the passage of time.
yes,
It's used to like the first montage is essentially just
he's really fucking good at this.
he's really fucking good at this. He's having fun.
Yeah,
And it's the time between him starting this and Jasper basically getting back into the fold.
yeah.
Because like that's really all that happens. Like he's not like
Builds
getting
up the
better.
conflict between him and Jasper.
A little
It builds
bit,
up
yeah.
Jasper's resentment.
Yeah, for sure. And then also I like it how he's like watching YouTube videos on like how to do an accent and how to do like makeup.
Yeah,
That I feel like is like his biggest like growth in these things because like as far as like spinning a tale, like he's good at that. We know that.
so there are so many questions that I
Yes.
have logistically. Like one, okay, I would say it's based on a true story, but like we know that this movie definitely took major liberties, right?
Yeah.
But number one, I'm like, okay, he's really got this teaching thing down, or that, or like being a psychology professor really is like a no commitment job. Because this is like he takes this on and he turns it into like another like fucking full time job.
Yeah.
Like accents and like makeup and what have you. A, B. I think it might be the first sting that he does. It's $2,500 down payment, $2,500 to do the kill. And
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, like someone would think that they could get away with just paying $5,000 to kill somebody.
But I mean, I think that's kind of the point, right? Like the almost like the
It
ridiculousness
is.
of like the situations is
Yeah.
what makes this feel real.
And I'm sure there's somebody out there who would. I'm sure there's a world out there where that transaction would, in theory, go down. But like if you would only take $5,000 to kill, like you, if it better be some life changing money. Like,
So funny enough, we were watching. Katie's been watching Shameless, a show that I do not like.
yeah,
I think everybody in that show fucking sucks. And in one of the scenes that she was watching,
they suck because they have no shame.
absolutely,
Yeah.
William H Macy's character is upset that his daughter's like new fiance beat him up,
Mm.
and so he's like talking to this dude in the subway, and he's like, I mean, I could kill him for you. And he's like, oh, okay. He's
Yeah.
like, I'll give you like $5,000, $10,000, or whatever it was. I can't remember. And I'm like, yeah, that's basically this.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know. This is the debate that I don't think we need to have. But like, what is the amount of money that you're like, this is how much I think?
I think it's got to start at least $20,000.
At least $20,000.
Yeah. Because you can safely buy a car for $20,000. Not the best car, but you can buy a car. And a car is a life changing, right? That's a that's a life changing purchase.
It opens up so many opportunities.
Yeah, I would say $20,000 has to be my starting point.
The starting point.
Right.
I don't know. It's kind of it and again like it's the comical aspect of this because like we have the lady who's like, I'll give you this boat. It's like, just don't sell it here. Take it to Texas so you can get like $6,000 for it.
Yeah.
And there's a kid who's like, here's some Madden video games and like $250. Kill my bitch mom.
Yeah.
So like,
You're not dealing with the smartest bulbs in the bunch.
absolutely, right? And the funny thing is, apparently, from what I was reading, like the one with the kid, like he was a kid who had like an IQ of like I think 180.
Oh wow.
So like he was a really smart kid.
IQ is not necessarily a.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? But again, like he gave him like video games and like pocket change to kill a kid
That's crazy.
who like his crush liked or something like that.
Yeah.
So like these people are at a state in their like mental development where
Right.
they think like, oh, this little amount of money can make my problems go away.
Yeah.
And I think even he comments on that in the movie. He's like, it's amazing.
Bitch, that little amount of money can't buy you flowers for your wedding.
So after the first like montage is where we have him meet Madison.
Yes.
Right? She's like a pageant queen from, I'm assuming, Brazil, because I think they talk about she's like from Del Rio.
I don't remember that, but I'll
Something
buy
like
it.
But anyway, her beef is she wants to have her husband killed because he's like
He sucks.
he fucking sucks, right?
I don't know too much about the NVXIM cult or whatever, however it's spelled or pronounced. You know what I'm talking about,
Wait,
right?
what?
That one cult, it's like NVIXM and Vixen. I don't know. There was an HBO documentary about it.
I think so, yeah.
Anyway, I don't know too much about it, but like, this character would join that shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And like the thing that sucks is like there's people like this. Like who are so controlling,
Yes.
who are so like insecure,
Yes.
like they demean the person who they're supposed to like
Kanye.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like just so easily go off the deep end, right?
Yeah.
As we learn later, right? So like I can understand him wanting to like give her the advice and like steer her away.
Right.
Where I feel like of all the people, I think she could have gotten off the
Yes.
easiest.
Which I forget the details of the trial scenes now, but isn't there at least one trial scene where we see them, if not get off, they get like Their sentence isn't that bad.
The witness, or not the witness, the person who was supposed to get killed, like
Yeah.
basically forgives the person, says like, "Oh, I was a piece of shit.
Okay, that was it then.
Like I forgive you. She forgives me. Like,
Yeah.
and then the jury, like, lets him off, right?
Yeah.
So there is like I understand the idea that like people can see this and like through like their lawyer speak be like this is like an entrapment thing,
Right.
but like at what point does it become entrapment and at what point does it become like we are stopping legitimate like premeditated murder?
Well, so first I'll ask you the question, but then I'm also curious as to what you think. How well or to what extent is like the movie interested in this question? Because I think if you take a case like hers, where like for her it's very much like this is her means of getting out of a bad situation. At what point is it more ethical as the police than to be like, all right, we're gonna we're gonna stop this operation right here, and now we're just gonna send in a deputy to go like question,
Well,
right?
because
Because like
as far as I'm aware, like I don't even think she was like physically abusive. I think
he was physically
I
abusive
don't think so. I think he was just a
verbally,
piece of shit. He was just controlling. He was more mentally abusive than anything.
but the crime doesn't happen until they say like, I need you to kill him,
Yeah,
and then they give money.
yeah.
Right. So the question is, at what point is it more ethical for like law enforcement to be like, all right, we're stopping this sting operation.
Oh, I see.
Now send in like the agent, just be like, hey, like, what can we do to?
To help.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think like Jasper points out, like that's not our problem.
Technically, yes, but then
Technically, yes.
this
Like,
goes to the a cabness of it. Like,
yeah,
it's supposed to be your like this.
it's
not your
supposed to
problem,
be
but
your
it is
problem. You're supposed to want to help
Yeah.
these people who
Yeah.
get to this point.
Yeah.
But it seems like a lot of the people that we see are not that case.
No, no,
A
no, no,
lot of
no.
and like I feel like almost exclusively all the people that we see,
Yeah.
it's these are just shitty people.
Which then should make this situation feel so much different.
Yeah,
And not just because she's attractive, right? I
it
think
helps.
a lot of this movie really does hinge on the fact that like these two actors and characters are really hot.
Yeah, but I do think that like and I don't know if they could have done better by showing other people who have that like plausible deniability,
Yeah.
right? Because like I mean that's what she does have. Like it's there is one scene where um we see the guy, sorry, the lawyer say like this is a crime of passion,
Mm-hmm.
and they ask him like is this a crime of passion? Like no, like this person was like looking
Looking.
looking to kill someone,
Yeah.
right? Like this is premeditated. This is not like a spur of the moment thing, right? Um, where I feel like in her case, like yes, it's premeditated, but it's because she's been driven to this point.
Yes.
And I think if we had seen other people who were in a similar position, even if they weren't hot, I think then that could have made this stand out as like, oh, it's him doing it because he finds her cute too.
And I think this gets to my next problem with the movie, where I'm not ready to get into the ending yet, but the ending kind of surprised me because I was like, I think this movie is framing this character as crazy.
The woman or the guy?
Yes.
Yes. So funny you say that. So, all right. So, I took some notes.
Yeah.
I was watching the movie last night. One of the things that I want to say before, Gary is such a Matt, and I mean this in the best way.
Yeah.
Like I see Gary and I see Matt, and I'm like, these could be the same person.
Yeah.
Like very like just a very nice white man,
Right.
trying to go through his day.
Exactly.
But anyway, like I'm going through this movie and I'm like, one of my notes is, oh no, he's just crazy.
Yeah.
And this is when they're talking about like, I think is that they're going on a date and he pulls out the gun
Right.
on the person
And she finds it.
and she's like
She finds it hot.
she finds it hot and I was like, oh no,
Right.
like this is a problem.
Yeah.
then she's talking about like, oh well, I'm not actually divorced. Like I'm going through the process, and he's like, wait a minute, like these are two very different
What's this
things.
called in How I Met Your Mother? The Vicky Mendoza line, right?
Oh, the hot crazy scale.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
It's
it's this.
it's
She's
this.
she's playing jump rope with this.
Yeah,
Um, they go for like froyo, and this is where Jasper like catches them,
right.
and she goes. She's like, oh well, your ex coworker saw us, my ex husband saw us. It's kind of the same thing, and like she's playing it as a joke, and
Yeah,
I'm like,
these are not
these are
equivalent.
not the same things at all.
Not equivalent. She gets her own gun,
She gets her own gun.
right? She's just brandishing it around.
And I'm just like, buddy, these are some red fucking flags.
Yeah, and then there's okay. So let's jump ahead. She does
Mm-hmm.
eventually kill her husband.
So yeah, we find out that the ex-husband. Well, the reason why
Yeah.
it is genuinely hilarious though. Like the domino effect leading to this is pretty funny because the scene happens when they're at the club.
Right.
The ex-husband's
Husband.
like, you have a new boyfriend, fuck you, and blah blah
Yeah,
blah,
and
fuck
he's
your new
clearly a piece of
boyfriend.
shit. He's clearly
He's
who
this
needs
is
to get got.
this is where we
Yeah.
see like this dude deserved to have a hit put on him, right? And then the the boyfriend or the ex-husband, sorry, tries to put on a hit on
Her.
on yep
Yeah.
on Madeline
The highest-
and the boyfriend,
Yeah.
right? So like then Glenn Powell goes like, "Whoa, what's up?" And, like,
Yeah.
he shows him, right?
Yeah.
And then like if he had not done that, I think that could lead to then yes problems for him because he's seeing this woman,
Right.
but then that leads this guy to potentially like try to take it into his own hands, right?
Correct. Which he would totally be in his character.
He would.
Yeah.
So then he tells Marlene,
Mhm.
not Marlene Madison, hey, he might come after you,
Yeah, you gotta leave.
which then sets her domino
Right.
to go after the
Him.
dude and fucking kill him.
Yeah.
And then he's surprised about it.
That was okay. That was it was a surprise about it where I was like, I think I took it as a miss of the movie because I'm like, there's no universe for me where like this guy does not get enough of these flags to realize like that she's not the one who did it.
I think for him, it's a blind spot issue. He is so
Captivated.
like captivated because like he does find her like extremely hot.
But okay, so up until the end, and how much of it does the movie make it seem like it's really more so about the sex and the hotness than it is about like the chemistry and the romance? Like, there's some chemistry and romance there.
There is
but, like,
definitely the chemistry and the romance
you
in this
see,
movie.
but you see a lot more sexual flirtation.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he does say there's a line where he says like he likes being Ron because Ron doesn't think.
Yeah.
Ron just wants to fuck.
Yes.
And I think that's his problem. He got too caught up on being Ron because he does have a conversation with his ex-wife where he's like, you can't change, and she's like, you can, you just have to like manifest it, which is a very white person thing if you really think about it.
That's why I say this to someone who liked this movie. I'm a little surprised that this movie is receiving as much like positivity as it's getting, because I think like that line is cringe. I do think the ending is very questionable for me.
The ending is a huge leap in logic.
Yeah.
I think it's a more of a like a shock ending for the sake of a shock ending. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
And that's why I'm glad that at the end they like in the ending credits they meant, okay, so spoiler alert, Jasper dies. We can explain how like it gets there in a bit.
I love this, by the way. The scene is happening. He wants to help him. I go, oh, Jasper's being a bro. My next line, oh, Jasper is not a bro.
So Jasper is a crooked cop, right? And he looks like a crooked
He
cop.
looks he looks sleazy.
Yeah,
He's got like the long like oily hair.
yeah, gross.
Gross.
So he wants Glenn Powell's job because it was originally his own job, right? Glenn Powell's really good at it, so Jasper like has his like job of being the hitman actor taken from him.
Which, by the way, not only did Jasper lose the job to Gary because Gary is better, he
He was
lost
also
the job because
suspended.
he beat the shit out of some
Yeah,
teenagers.
suspended with pay, right? So then, there's the whole thing with the murder of Madison's husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Glenn Powell's in trouble because like he's kind of an accomplice. Like he's kind of an accomplice to this between unethically like dating and banging this person who
Yeah.
he was supposed to be busting. So Jasper's trying to prove that Jasper wants it proved that like she did it and Glenn Powell knew, so Glenn Powell can be out and he can get back in. Glenn Powell uses his like smart logic to get out, and then Jasper, I think actually, I love the way this played out because it just took me so off guard to like walk in the house and just fucking see Jasper there, and they both look like and this is why I also think she's framed as crazy is because they both look way too chill. Like
Who? Jasper and
Madison.
Madison
Like
and
he's just in her house and she's yeah, have a beer, my friend, right? And then
well, that's kind of like his villainy, like
his villainy,
right, like
but she's very chill with it. That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't disagree. I just thought it was kind of funny because like this is happening, and for a second, like I thought my thinking here was, oh, Gary is going to do something.
Right.
And then he just fucking like starts like slurring his speech.
Yeah.
And he just fucking passes out. And she's like, oh no, I'm fucked. And he's like, oh, why? And I just wrote, oh, this bitch. Because she's like, I drugged a cop.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Madison, what are you doing? Oh my God. This is like a series of her like
doing crazy shit.
doing crazy shit. By the way, when he finds out that she killed him,
Right.
and she's like, "Oh, I'm so sad," and you know, like I was so scared, and he's like, "Why were you scared?" He's like, "Well, because I killed him,"
Yeah.
and he just immediately folds.
Yeah.
I got like an audible like laugh at that
Yeah.
because he just cannot handle this shit.
No.
And by the end of this movie, I'm just like, all right, she killed her ex.
Mm-hmm.
Technically speaking, he killed Jasper.
They were both. She was an accomplice.
They're both accomplices
Yes.
to each other here.
Yes.
Can you trust someone who would bust a cap on you if you like forget to put the seat up? Because that's
No.
this like relationship
So okay.
is insane.
All right, and I don't want to. I want to do justice. I need to be shitting on Glenn Powell's character more because like he is manipulative and like abusing his authority that he's been given to by like law enforcement.
Yes.
So like I think that's very very much a problem. But at the end, we find out they get married. They
get married. They have 2 kids,
and everything's hunky dory.
I wrote on our notes, and they lived happily ever after.
And I'm like, that is bold.
It's bold.
That is bold.
And we want to make sure it's very clear.
Yeah.
This is made up.
It is made up.
Right? This movie is based on the true story of a guy named Gary Johnson.
There was no femme fatale.
There was no femme fatale.
There was no murdering. Yeah.
This takes a branch
Yeah.
in the what if
To a
in the
point where
Marvel Studios presents what if
it becomes a totally different tree.
it becomes
But that's like the note that the movie leaves you on, that like everything was a-okay.
everything was okay.
And
he tells the daughter the story of how they met at a diner.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I'm not upset necessarily, but it's always kind of funny to me when they're like based on a true story and people go, yeah, but like how much of this is like true?
Right.
The movie tells us like this shit is made up, right?
Now the movie tells us that there was no murder,
There was no murder.
but I think I had to do the research to find out that like the Madison character didn't exist at all.
Oh, okay.
Like I think the only inspiration for this guy was like, oh, it's kind of cool that he was a professor and he really was good at like this, like
Secondary thing,
yeah.
right?
But there's nothing other than that. There's nothing like fascinating.
Scandalous,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that leads to another question of like, at what point, hmm, at what point did you just let a story be a story
Without what?
without having the need to make it into a film? So
Uh,
like you have so like example,
yeah.
the second Conjuring movie.
Right.
You've seen it, right?
I think so.
It's the one where they're in England. It's the Enfield poltergeist, where there's always been debate as to like, are these girls experiencing paranormal activity?
Hmm.
Is it just shit that was kind of made up?
Hmm.
There's police reports saying no, there was like spooky shit.
Yeah.
There's people who are like, no, the girl was just like really good at like ventriloquism
Yeah.
and like making herself sound weird, right? So like, there's always that like plausible deniability of like maybe there was some weird shit. Let's run with that. Make a movie. This movie is just like
There wasn't any weird shit.
no.
There was like something kind of cool.
He's a dude. He does kind of something that's kind of funny.
Right.
Let's make a movie, but then end on some wild
And
shit.
Go off the deep end. Yeah.
And I'm like, at what point does that then go from like, oh, this is no longer kind of like a funny thing. This is just like you're just doing something for the sake of doing something.
I think it's really more. I think you'll get more out of this movie, both entertainment wise and critically, if you more so treat it as a pure work of fiction rather than something that is like inspired by true events.
And I think that's what it should have been.
Yeah.
Like, don't call him Gary Johnson.
No.
Like, start with a different name.
Yeah.
Make that the story.
Yeah.
I think that would have worked better.
And then like when you're asked about it, you're like, yeah, there was this guy who was like the inspiration for our like. Yeah.
And I think that would have been better.
Right. Because I mean
Right?
that's how a lot of fiction.
That's how that fiction works.
Yeah.
And,
There
and
was
that's
this thing.
fine.
Yeah.
But I think this movie kind of toes that line a little bit too much for my liking.
I-
It's still good. It's very entertaining. I got big laughs. I think like the emotional beats kind of do hit.
They do.
And I think it's I would say this is a good movie.
Yes.
I would say it's a good movie.
I would say it's a good movie with a problematic ending.
Yes.
And I'm surprised I'm not hearing as much like dialogue about the problematic ending. Maybe I'm not looking in the right places.
I mean, just looking at reviews, I think
It's 97 is high.
not only is it 90s because we talked about this, right? Like
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes is like weird. All it means is like people were
Positive
like generally
ratings.
positive, but a
Yeah.
positive can be a 6 out of 10, right?
Right.
This has an average rating of an 8.1
That's high.
from critics.
Yeah.
Critics who are generally very like
Critical.
critical, hence the name.
And that's
Right?
from a movie that's like 25% montage. Right. It shouldn't work on paper.
It shouldn't, but I mean,
But it does.
it does.
Yeah.
It does. But I do think there's something to be said about a movie that like maybe starts strong and then like just loses it like in the last bit.
Mhm.
There's a movie called like The Exorcist or The Exorcism coming out where somebody who was reviewing it were like, this movie was really good, but like the last 30 minutes like completely lost me.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there watching this review and thinking like, I've seen movies where like I really enjoy most of it and maybe like the last 10 minutes are ass, but I will not completely disparage a movie based on that.
Two questions about us. They're both about the same movie. What did you think of Hancock?
I enjoyed it. I
Oh,
remember
okay.
I remember generally enjoying the movie.
So most people
I think the ending is stupid.
have my opinion of the movie from when I saw it in 2008. I've never seen it since. I saw it in 2008. I walked out hating it because I loved the first half and I absolutely hated the second half. If this movie came out closer to now, I don't think you have as much of that reaction.
I just think the reason why it kind of works for me is because it's different than
It is
like
different.
the general like superhero bullshit.
It came out the same year as The Dark Knight, and the first half is very Dark Knighty, and then the second half is
Takes a
aliens.
turn.
Yep.
Takes a turn,
Yeah.
right?
So I think that was the peak. That was the golden age of like superhero realism,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's why it didn't work for me at that point, and why it didn't work for other people. But I think I bring it up because that to me is the movie that comes into my mind of like is one thing, and then
Strong enough to outweigh the.
or maybe not even that, but it's just like one thing for like half of the movie or more, and then takes a big old turn.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't want to say that like it takes a turd.
A turd.
It doesn't.
No.
Like, I don't think the end here is enough for me to be like, this is stupid.
No, I don't think it makes.
It
No.
feels out of character.
Yeah.
Thematically, I guess it kind of makes sense because of that conversation where they have where they're like, you can manifest whatever you want to be. Like, if you want to be tougher, if you want to be more, whatever you can. So, like, I get it.
I think the reason I just like if someone truly believed that, I think I just could not take them seriously. And
Yeah.
then, but that's the. I mean, like I'm sure I believe some things that like other people like think are goofy as shit, right? So
Sure.
to each their own on that. But like, yeah, I think that's my barrier. Is if the theme here really is about the power of manifestation, then I'm like, all right. Part of me is like, no gracias. But I enjoyed I enjoyed the way that theme was packaged.
I think I could, I could overlook this aspect of the movie a little bit more if they didn't kill the cop.
Mm, yeah.
That's the part where I think it turns your character from like having that like they're still the hero.
Yeah.
It's like
Because even if you don't like the term crazy, if that term is too problematic for you, then erratic is certainly appropriate.
here's the thing though, right? Like
Yeah.
like Ray the boyfriend needed to get got.
Needed to get
He
caught.
was a bad person. He probably was going to I mean
Yeah.
he tried to hire a hit for hey, my ex-wife has a boyfriend.
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
Jasper is also a bad person. Like,
Jasper is a bad person. But and he was extorting them.
yeah.
But I feel like somebody wants to blackmail you versus somebody wants to kill you
Are different.
are different enough in my mind, I think.
Especially when someone has like legitimate-ish reason to blackmail you.
Exactly.
Like they committed.
They committed a
crime.
bad thing.
Yeah.
They killed the person and they covered it up.
I love his acting though when they go back to the theater, and then like I don't know why I like this scene so much, but it's after he like gives his theory to Glenn, and then he's like, "Huh, guess we found nothing here. Shame." There's something about that scene I really enjoyed.
Yeah. And I don't know, like I think like I said, that feels almost like a bridge too far for me in the logic of like, is this character still a good character?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I need my characters to be like black and white. Like morally great characters are fine.
Yeah.
But I just feel like that.
But when the movie ends on the "and they lived happily ever after" note,
yeah,
it does make you it does make you feel different things inside.
you're just like, this is not okay. Still a very good movie though. I still think like everything else in there is very fun. I do have a question for you.
Please.
Who is your favorite persona of his? Because he has some funny ones.
The British one who looks like the little lady from The Incredibles is funny.
That one looks like Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the Patrick Bateman one.
Patrick Bateman.
The American Psycho one.
There's the one where he's with the guy at the shotgun range.
where they're shooting the clay pigeons.
I think I just like the exchange a lot between them.
I have a note for that where he just fucking sack taps the guy.
Yeah.
I love that though.
Yeah.
I think it's funny though that they're like, there's no such thing as hitmen.
That's what I was wondering.
And I'm like, listen,
is there really no such thing?
No. I feel like this movie does the same thing that like a lot of like if you think about the government, they don't actually do this.
Right.
No, there are hitmen.
Yeah.
It's just like these are people who work for like a criminal organization. These are people who work for like a government.
Well, this is where now we can turn this into a racial conversation.
Sure.
It's how people take black and brown organized crime, and in their brain they just categorize it differently.
Yeah.
Than white organized crime.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does look very different.
It might look different, but at the end of the day, it's still
But
organized crime.
When you're looking on stats on mass shootings, like yes, some of them are like the Dylan Roofs of the world, but then also some of them are like there were two gangs having a turf war.
Yeah.
Like next to this school, and they're both considered like school mass shootings. And in our brain, we just do not compute that those are related phenomenon. So like there are hitmen. Sometimes it's like your guy for the Latin Kings is like
you go out
gonna make a hit on the guy on the Crips.
Yeah. And I just find that funny. Like this movie goes out of its way to be like, nope, and you're like,
yeah.
I don't know about that, Chief.
Yeah.
I don't know. This movie did the whole thing where, like we discussed earlier, like they release it for a week, and then have fun.
Yeah.
Which again, I mean, at least it had a theatrical window, a very short one. I think the closest one playing it to us was like Yorktown.
How long was Glass Onion's theatrical release? And was it
a weekend? I think
that's it.
I think it was either a weekend or a week, and it was like Thanksgiving weekend.
Now it's interesting since doing their password crackdown thing. Netflix has actually been doing well, but I don't know if that's like slightly inflated, where it's like, oh, people realize they just needed their Netflix, so like their accounts like increased. Like I'd be curious to see like how many people actually left Netflix, how many new customers they made, and how many new accounts are just like people not stealing anymore. But I say this to connect to this movie because like it's frustrating as lovers of like the theater, but I feel like they must have a logic to it.
I mean, it's a matter of like seeing how much they're charging, how many subscribers they have, versus like how much they're pumping into these things, right? So like this movie, for example, like right, budget $8 million, right? But Netflix bought it for $20 million.
Oh wow!
So like as far as like the people who made this movie, they made their money back.
Yep.
And then some, right? They made $12 million on this movie.
Yeah.
But Netflix so far, like box office wise, because they're the ones who put it out, they distribute it. They only made 1 million in theaters in that week.
Yeah.
Right?
So then how much?
So then, justifiably speaking, Netflix needs to make $19 million off of this movie.
So then here's my question. Netflix, to me, is concerned in the value of the Netflix brand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious as to what's their number crunching rationale that they have in their head that lets them, because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize if it's only in theaters for a little bit, it's not going to make that much money.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow the logic has to work that keeping this movie on Netflix is somehow going to net them enough money where this is like this and like keeping Glass Onion on Netflix only are worthwhile financial investments.
Yeah, and I mean I think it's a matter of like their watch time, and I will say like Netflix at least is very transparent with like their watch time, like how many hours a certain thing has been seen.
So what's the stat they keep like hidden though? Because I know that like when you watch Charts with Dan, there's some Netflix stats that like you can only speculate because they don't release certain.
Well, I think it's like how much like each person finishes. So like what they will do is they'll say like these are like the hours watched.
I see.
But like, is this one person watching this movie over and over and over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Or is it like a couple million people watching the first 5 minutes of this movie and then going, this isn't worth it.
Yeah.
So like that I think is where the difference is.
I see.
Right? So what Dan does in his charts is he'll take the hours and then he'll divide it by the runtime and he'll say like this is potentially how many viewers this would possibly have.
I see.
Right? which is not a great metric.
But it's the best you got.
It's the best you got. I don't know. I'm curious with like Netflix what their plan is because like a new movie will bring in new customers, right?
Yeah.
Like regardless of whether we like to admit it or not, like we will watch the new Netflix movie on Netflix, right? It's the reason why we don't just cancel it every month and just binge watch
Yeah.
everything we want to in the span of a month and then cancel it for another month, right?
Yeah.
We're not doing that. There's a lot of times where I don't watch Netflix for multiple months at a time. Katie
Yeah.
does, but I don't,
Yeah.
right? But then the problem is like what happens when this movie is out 10 years from now and then they just go, nah, we don't want this. Like we don't want to keep paying for the license
For this movie.
for this movie.
It does just poof.
It just poops, right? And that's a problem that like Mike Flanagan has been very vocal of.
Yeah.
One of his movies, which is very great, called Hush. It was a Netflix exclusive movie, and you cannot find that anywhere.
Wow.
It's not on rental. It's not on streaming anywhere else.
Is that on the high seas?
It might be on the. I mean, it's got to be on the high seas
Yeah.
for sure. It is. I
You know somebody.
I know somebody who acquired the movie recently for reasons.
Yeah.
But it's taking him until now to finally get the rights back so that he can release it in physical.
Yeah.
So like, to what extent does Netflix see the value that a movie is bringing in before they go, this is not what I want anymore,
Right.
right? And that might be more justifiable with a movie like this, where they only spend 20 million, and I mean it's on the top of the charts.
Yeah.
We'll have to see how it does and how they justify it. But like a movie like what's that Rebel Moon movie?
Yeah.
I am not.
I still haven't seen either one.
It's not worth
Nor
it.
am I. Did
They
both-
just the fucking balls, Stano. They just released the runtime for Rebel Moon, like the extended director's cut.
Why do we need to? What is the point of an extended director's cut on things that are directly to Netflix?
I have no fucking clue, dude.
Yeah. I get it in a
And
theater.
I thought at first I thought, well, maybe they'll do a theatrical release, and they want it to be PG-13 because PG-13 will bring in more
more
Yep, clientele than R-rated. But no, they didn't even do that.
Yeah.
I think they did a screening. I'm sorry, the masses are not going to a screening. And the runtime of this movie is like 7 hours.
Really?
And I'm like, I am not sitting down to watch 7 hours worth of Zack Snyder.
The one
slow
movie
motion.
is 7 hours long.
Like if you combine parts 1 and 2,
Oh, I see.
like it's a total runtime of like 7 hours.
Too much time for
And
me.
I'm like, Netflix is paying. It's like they're like footing the bill for all this shit.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I cannot imagine that movie bringing in as many
Them Snyder Cut.
hours.
Them Snyder Cut people must have some deep pockets. I don't know what it is in this.
Dude,
one.
I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It boggles my mind. Anyway, on that philosophical quandary, we will leave our wonderful.
That's what makes this show great.
That is what makes the show great.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, last thing though, like I really did like this movie. It's a good time. It's very kind of funny that this like it feels like it should be like an action comedy, like a romantic action comedy.
I was curious, what genre would you say this movie?
I would say
is?
this falls more like a strict like. It's not a rom-com,
No.
but it's a romance movie with like dark comedy.
Yeah. Which doesn't seem to have a name of a genre yet. And maybe that's what's so fun about this movie is it is different.
I think I saw somebody call this like a dark comedy. I don't want to go as far as saying it's a dark comedy because dark comedy I feel like is like things that you should not laugh at.
I see.
I feel like this movie specifically is like you should be laughing at some of this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway,
Rom-com with dark elements.
but it's not rom-com-y.
Uh,
Like rom-com, I feel like
comedic-
feels more like a sitcom type of
a
thing.
comedic romance with. Although by the classical definition of comedy, it has the happy ending, so then therefore, it is in its purest form a comedy. And maybe we'll just leave it at that.
Maybe.
A comedy with romantic elements
Sure.
that has teaspoons of dark humor.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and share. Until next time, he has been Thano.
He has been Javier.
And this has been the Cine-Scoots movie show. Bye.
Bye.